Alright, let's dive into 1984, George Orwell's dystopian classic. The vibes? Bleak. The setting? Depressing as heck. The story kicks off in Airstrip 1, formerly known as England, in this hellish, grey world where Big Brother watches everything and freedom is a relic of the past. Like, imagine living in a cross between Black Mirror and a hardcore survival game where you can't trust anyone, not even yourself. It's that kind of bad. Our protagonist, Winston Smith, is the kind of guy who'd be labeled a total NPC if he weren't so painfully aware of how broken the world is. He's middle-aged, kind of sickly, and works at the Ministry of Truth, a place where truth gets more spin than your favorite streamer playing Fortnite. His job is to rewrite history to match the party's narrative. Like, if the party says they invented pizza last week, Winston's out here deleting all records of pepperoni existing before that. It's giving ultimate gaslighting energy. Anyway, the story kicks off on this dreary April day, and the first thing Winston notices is that the clocks are striking 13. Yep, even time is sus in this world. Everything's grey, the weather's trash, and the city smells like boiled cabbage, so basically the aesthetic is post-apocalyptic cafeteria. Winston lives in this sad little apartment called Victory Mansions, which sounds fancy but is actually falling apart. The walls are thin, the plumbing sucks, and oh yeah, there's a telescreen in every room. Imagine a flat-screen TV that watches you 24/7 and reports back to the party if you so much as sneeze the wrong way. Privacy? Never heard of her. As soon as Winston walks in, the telescreen starts blasting propaganda. It's Big Brother's face, this guy with a mustache who looks like a cross between your grumpy uncle and a dictator straight out of a history textbook. Big Brother is everywhere, in posters, on coins, on every screen. His tagline? Big Brother is watching you. Creepy, right? Winston's already in a bad mood because, well, dystopia, and he's hiding this illegal purchase he just made, a journal. Yeah, in this world, keeping a diary is considered an act of rebellion. Writing your own thoughts? That's a one-way ticket to getting vaporized. Winston sits down and starts journaling about how much he hates Big Brother and the party. It's like the ultimate rage tweet, except it's on paper and could get him executed. He writes down with Big Brother over and over, which is bold considering the thought police are a thing. These guys are like the secret bosses of the regime, monitoring your brainwaves to make sure you're not even thinking anti-party thoughts. Get caught? You don't just get cancelled, you get erased from existence. Like, your name gets scrubbed from records, and it's like you were never born. Hardcore. While Winston's spiraling in his journal, he starts flashing back to the super creepy government-mandated event called the 2 Minutes Hate. It's basically a daily scream session where everyone gathers to yell at a big screen showing Emmanuel Goldstein, the party's scapegoat. Goldstein's this rebel leader who's supposedly public enemy number one, but honestly, no one even knows if he's real. He's just a convenient boogeyman to keep people in line. The hate session is wild, people are screaming, throwing stuff, and straight up losing their minds. Winston, being the main character that he is, doesn't feel the full hype. He hates Big Brother more than Goldstein but has to fake it so he doesn't get caught slipping. During the 2 Minutes Hate, Winston notices this girl with dark hair giving him side-eye. Her name is Julia, and she's like the athletic, edgy type who works for the party. Winston immediately hates her because he assumes she's a narc. Like, oh great, here's someone who's definitely going to rat me out to the thought police. There's also this dude O'Brien, a high-ranking party member who gives Winston these weird, cryptic vibes. O'Brien looks at him like, yo, maybe I'm on your side, but Winston's not sure if he's imagining it. Trust issues? Sky high. Later, Winston reflects on how deep the party's control runs. They're not just policing actions, they're rewriting reality itself. The party's slogan says it all: war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. It's total mental gymnastics, but everyone just rolls with it because, well, survival. Winston knows it's all lies, but he's also scared out of his mind. The party's got this idea called doublethink, where you hold two contradictory beliefs at once, and they've basically brainwashed the entire population into thinking this way. It's like everyone's been hit with the world's most toxic patch update. The next day, Winston's stuck in the grind at the Ministry of Truth, doing his usual job of erasing facts. This is where you realize how next level the party's manipulation is. They don't just control the present, they control the past too. If they say they've always been at war with Eastasia, then bam, all records of being allied with Eastasia are wiped clean. Winston's good at his job, but he hates it. Every time he changes a piece of history, he's reminded of how fake everything is. It's like editing Wikipedia but with deadly consequences. During a break, Winston notices Julia again, and now he's paranoid. She's always nearby, and he's convinced she's spying on him. He starts imagining worst-case scenarios, like her reporting him for thought crime or straight up shanking him in a dark alley. But here's the twist, he's also weirdly attracted to her. Talk about emotional whiplash. He can't decide if he wants to kiss her or yeet her out of his life forever. By the end of Chapter 2, Winston's fully aware he's living on borrowed time. The diary? The rebellious thoughts? The silent rage against Big Brother? It's all going to get him caught eventually. But instead of backing down, he doubles down. Like a gamer who knows the boss fight is unwinnable but charges in anyway, Winston's ready to take whatever risks it takes to hold onto his humanity, even if it's just for a little while longer. And there you have it, the opening of 1984. It's dark, it's heavy, but it's also weirdly relatable. Like, who hasn't felt like the world is out to get them? Only in Winston's case, it's literally true. Keep your head on a swivel, because things are about to get even wilder. Alright, buckle up, because chapters 3 and 4 of 1984 are where Orwell hits us with the big brain moves and Winston goes deeper into his existential crisis. Think of it as a tutorial level for understanding how utterly jacked up this dystopian world is. So, we dive in with Winston having a wild dream sequence. In one dream, he's chilling in this beautiful countryside spot he calls the Golden Country, which is basically his mental escape from all the Big Brother nonsense. In this dream, Julia, the edgy girl he's been low-key hating on but also crushing on, is there, too. She just vibes confidently, tearing off her party uniform like she's about to drop a mixtape. The energy is all rebellion and freedom, and Winston wakes up feeling some type of way, like he just downloaded a patch of hope in a world that's still buggy AF. But then reality comes crashing back because, this is 1984. Winston wakes up to the telescreen blaring some obnoxious propaganda and mandatory morning calisthenics. Imagine if your alarm clock forced you to work out while insulting your form. Some instructor yells through the screen, touch your toes, Winston. Even a prole could do better. The party is dead serious about keeping its citizens both brainwashed and in decent shape. As Winston stretches his way into another miserable day, he gets lost in his thoughts, and we get more world building. He remembers his childhood during the early days of the party, and surprise, it wasn't great. His parents and little sister just kind of disappeared one day, thanks, thought police, and he was left to fend for himself. It's like an IRL Hunger Games prequel, only with fewer cool outfits. The party basically rewrote reality so much that Winston doesn't even trust his own memories anymore. Like, was chocolate always this nasty government-issued nonsense? Who knows? Time and truth are spaghetti to the party, they twist it however they want. Speaking of twisted truth, Winston also gets deep into how the party controls people's thoughts through Newspeak, their super dumbed-down language. The whole point of Newspeak is to shrink your vocabulary so much that rebellion isn't even thinkable. Like, how are you supposed to overthrow the government if you don't have words like freedom or justice? The party is nerfing your brain one word at a time, and it's horrifyingly effective. Imagine trying to have a debate and realizing all you can say is good or double plus ungood. That's Newspeak in a nutshell. Fast forward to chapter 4, and we're back at Winston's day job at the Ministry of Truth. Remember, this is the place where facts go to die. Winston's out here working on a big-time retcon project, rewriting historical records so they align with whatever lies the party is spitting today. It's like editing a Wikipedia page, except the stakes are your literal existence. His task? Change an old speech by Big Brother to make it look like the party predicted something correctly. Basically, Big Brother said chocolate rations were going up, but now they're actually going down. Winston's job is to tweak the records so it looks like the party was right all along. It's classic heads I win, tails you lose logic, and Winston's so good at it that he doesn't even flinch. He creates a fake story about a heroic soldier named Comrade Ogilvy who died gloriously in battle, except Ogilvy doesn't exist. Like, this dude is as real as a Genshin Impact character Winston just made up for clout. While doing this, Winston has another existential moment, wondering if anyone else even notices how fake everything is. The party controls not just what people say but what they think. It's like the ultimate mind control, and Winston feels completely alone in seeing through the BS. He knows writing in his secret diary is dangerous, but he keeps doing it because, honestly, what else does he have? Dudes clinging to scraps of individuality like a gamer trying to keep their health bar from depleting in a boss fight. And that's where we leave Winston for now, stuck in a system that's so rigged, even thinking about escaping feels impossible. He's like a lone player in a dystopian MMORPG where the party is the overpowered guild that controls everything, and he's just trying not to get yeeted out of existence. Stay tuned, because things are about to get even darker and weirder. Okay, so chapters 5 and 7 of 1984 really crank up the dystopia. Picture it, Winston's still trying to survive in this turbo-gaslit world where Big Brother runs the show and literally no one is having a good time. The vibes? Absolute trash. The stakes? Higher than a boss fight with no save point. Let's get into it. Winston starts off in the cafeteria at work, which is just as depressing as you'd expect from a place called the Ministry of Truth. The food? Some gross sludge called Victory Gin and this grey, mystery slop they claim is stew. It's like if someone made a cafeteria inspired by Fallout but with none of the charm. Winston's eating with this guy named Syme, who's super into his job of making Newspeak, the party's new language. Syme is smart, but he's also that one kid in class who's way too into following the rules. He's all, dude, Newspeak is so cool. Soon, we'll get rid of all these useless words like freedom and rebellion. Winston's just sitting there like, bro, do you hear yourself? But Syme's enthusiasm isn't winning him any points. Even Winston can tell this guy's too smart for his own good. In the party's world, being too clever is a one-way ticket to getting vaporized. Like, Syme doesn't realize he's basically walking around with a please delete me sign on his back. Meanwhile, Winston's just trying to act normal while his brain is screaming, this whole system is a scam. And speaking of scams, Winston notices Parsons, his neighbor and peak party fanboy. Parsons is this loud, sweaty guy who brags about his kids snitching on everyone for thought crime. Like, his kids are so brainwashed, they're basically mini-bosses for the thought police. Winston thinks it's horrifying, but Parsons is over here like, aren't they adorable? Yeah, no, dude. Later, we get a peek at how deep the party's propaganda goes. The telescreens announce that chocolate rations are being reduced again, but spin it like it's great news. Hey, citizens, congrats! Chocolate rations are now at 20 grams per week. And everyone in the cafeteria starts cheering, even though they were literally just getting 30 grams last week. Winston's sitting there like, are y'all for real? But this is the world he lives in. Everyone's been so brainwashed that they believe anything Big Brother says, no matter how ridiculous. Cut to Winston's secret life, where he's still keeping that illegal diary and having all these rebellious thoughts. He's been thinking a lot about the proles, the working class people who make up most of the population. The party doesn't really bother controlling the proles because they think they're too dumb to rebel. But Winston's like, what if the proles are actually the key to overthrowing Big Brother? He's got this dream that maybe, just maybe, the proles will rise up one day and yeet the party out of power. Spoiler, Winston's putting way too much faith in these folks, but hey, let the man dream. Now, let's talk about Chapter 7 because this is where Winston's existential crisis goes into overdrive. He's writing in his diary again, spilling all his deep thoughts about how screwed up everything is. He starts by ranting about the party's control over reality. Like, they don't just tell lies, they rewrite the truth. If the party says 2 + 2 is equal to 5, then you better believe it or you're toast. Winston knows this is all BS, but he also knows that resisting is basically impossible. It's like trying to beat the final boss in Dark Souls with a broken controller. Winston also reflects on the party's strategy for controlling people. They don't just want obedience, they want to own your soul. They erase love, friendship, and any kind of real connection. Marriage is a joke, kids are spies, and even having normal human emotions can get you sent to room 101, which, spoiler, is where nightmares go to party. Winston's had enough. He's like, if this is what it means to survive, what's the point? The man can't stop thinking about his childhood either. He has these blurry memories of when life was less terrible, but even those are tainted. Like, he remembers stealing food from his little sister during a famine because he was starving. That's the level of desperation the party creates, turning people into selfish husks just to stay alive. It's giving main character backstory tragedy vibes, but Winston doesn't even know if his memories are real. The party's been messing with history so much that he can't trust anything, not even his own brain. At this point, Winston starts to think about the concept of rebellion. He's like, okay, maybe I'm doomed, but that doesn't mean I can't fight back in some small way. Writing in his diary, having unorthodox thoughts, these are tiny acts of defiance that make him feel human, even if it's just for a second. He knows the thought police are probably going to catch him eventually, but he's reached that screw-it stage where he's willing to risk everything. Winston's also obsessed with this guy Goldstein, the supposed leader of the rebellion against Big Brother. Goldstein's face is everywhere during the 2 minutes hate, and the party paints him as the ultimate villain. But Winston secretly thinks Goldstein might be onto something. There's this underground book, supposedly written by Goldstein, that explains how the party keeps control, and Winston's dying to get his hands on it. He's convinced that understanding the party's methods is the first step to breaking free. And that's pretty much where we leave off. Winston's trapped in this nightmare world where the party owns everything, your thoughts, your memories, even your sense of reality. But he's not totally broken yet. Dude's still clinging to the shred of hope, like a gamer who refuses to quit even when they're down to their last life. It's bleak, but it's also kind of inspiring. Winston might not have a plan yet, but he's not ready to bow down to Big Brother without a fight. Stay tuned, because this rebellion is just getting started. Alright, Chapter 8 of 1984 is where Winston decides to level up his rebellion game. He's been playing it low-key, just scribbling spicy anti-party thoughts in his diary and reminiscing about better days. But now, he's feeling bold, like he just picked up a legendary weapon and is ready to explore the darkest dungeon in this dystopian hellscape. So, it starts with Winston casually breaking every rule in the party's Don't Be Suspicious handbook. He's wandering through the Prole District, which is basically the party's version of the Wild West, lawless, messy, and ignored by the higher-ups. The proles are the working-class masses who are too busy grinding to care about rebelling. Honestly, it's giving NPC energy. They just vibe, argue over petty stuff, and live their lives, blissfully unaware of how bad they have it. Winston's walking through like, why aren't these people revolting? But at the same time, he low-key envies them because they're not under Big Brother's constant watch. They've got no telescreens or thought police breathing down their necks. Winston stumbles across a street brawl, 2 women throwing hands over some tin saucepans. Yes, saucepans. It's like the most random side quest ever, but it hits Winston hard. He's like, these people could change the world if they stopped fighting over kitchenware and started fighting the party. He calls it hope that lies in the proles, but honestly, it's more like wishful thinking. Then, he has his big main mission moment when he spots an antique shop. It's run by this old guy named Sherrington, who's straight out of your classic wise NPC trope. The shop is a treasure chest of forbidden relics from the past, stuff the party wants erased from history. Winston's eyes lock onto this glass paperweight with a little piece of coral inside, and he's instantly obsessed. It's giving artifact of a bygone era vibes. Winston buys it, even though just owning it is sketchy AF. He knows the party would have a field day if they caught him, but he can't resist. It's like holding a tiny piece of real, unedited history. Sherrington also drops some lore. He shows Winston a hidden upstairs room with no telescreen, which is basically a cheat code in this world. The room feels like a relic from the pre-party days, complete with an old bed, a clock, and a cozy vibe that screams freedom. Winston's thinking this would be the perfect place to secretly vibe with someone who also hates the party. Foreshadowing? Oh, 100%. After Winston leaves the shop, he's on high alert, like he just triggered a boss fight he wasn't ready for. And, spoiler alert, he totally did. He sees that dark-haired girl, yes, her, from work, the one he's been side-eyeing and stressing over. She's following him through the streets like a stealthy assassin in Assassin's Creed. Winston's freaking out internally, thinking she's with the thought police and about to bust him for his whole illegal antique spree. He considers all his options, which are basically 1. Yeet himself into the Thames River, or 2. Go full-on Minecraft PvP mode and take her down first. But Winston's not built for combat, so he does what every socially awkward main character would do, nothing. He just keeps walking, praying she doesn't kill him or report him. When he finally loses her, Winston's adrenaline is through the roof, but the paranoia is even worse. He's convinced the thought police are onto him, and he's constantly checking his 6, expecting to get clapped at any moment. It's like he's permanently stuck in a stealth mission, and the stakes are life or death. The chapter ends with Winston feeling more isolated than ever. He's got all these rebellious thoughts swirling in his head, but he's still just one dude in a world where the party controls everything. The glass paperweight becomes a metaphor for his hope, something fragile and beautiful but completely out of place in his bleak reality. And even though he's spiraling, there's this tiny flicker of determination in him, like he knows he's not done fighting yet. He just has to figure out how to stay alive long enough to make a difference. So, that's chapter 8, a mix of sneaky rebellion, existential dread, and Winston pushing his luck harder than a speedrunner skipping checkpoints. You can tell he's gearing up for something big, but in a world like this, big plans usually come with big risks. Stay tuned, because Winston's journey is only getting more intense. Okay, buckle up, because part 2, chapters 1 to 3 of 1984 are where things start to get spicy, like, main character finds love in a dystopia spicy. Winston goes from being a depressed, paranoid cog in Big Brother's machine to a dude living out his rebellion dreams. It's a wild ride, so let's jump in. It all kicks off when Winston is trudging through the Ministry of Truth, vibing in his usual state of existential misery, when BM. That dark-haired girl from work, yeah, the one he thought was a thought police agent sent to delete him, stumbles and drops a note right in front of him. Smooth move, right? Winston's first thought is, oh, I'm 100% dead now. But nope. When he picks up the note, it doesn't say anything scary like we know what you're doing. Instead, it says, I love you. Hold up. What? Winston is totally shook. He spends the rest of the day replaying the moment like it's a confession scene from an anime. How is this even possible? He's been convinced this girl is out to ruin his life, and now she's declaring her love? Is it a trap? Is this some next-level thought police mind game? He has no idea, but you can practically see the question marks floating over his head. Now, trying to talk to her becomes Winston's new main quest. It's not easy, though, because Big Brother's world isn't exactly Tinder-friendly. Everyone is being watched all the time. Winston has to navigate this high-stakes game of how do I approach her without getting us both arrested for flirting. Eventually, they manage to meet up in the cafeteria, where she gives him secret instructions. Her name's Julia, by the way, and she's an expert at dodging the party's surveillance system. Winston follows her lead like a total noob who just got invited to a pros guild. Their first real meetup is straight out of a stealth mission in a video game. Julia tells Winston to meet her in a random countryside spot where there are no telescreens or microphones. When he gets there, it's like he's stepped into a forbidden zone. Nature? Fresh air? Birds chirping? It's practically illegal. Julia shows up, and surprise, she's nothing like what Winston expected. She's confident, fiery, and ready to break all the rules. She doesn't care about deep political theory or overthrowing the party, she just hates being told what to do. She's basically that one chaotic neutral friend who always says, rules are more like guidelines anyway. Their convo goes from 0 to 60 real quick. Julia tells Winston that she's been watching him for a while and knows he's not one of them, meaning, not a brainwashed party drone. She's into his rebellious vibes, and he's like, finally, someone who gets me. Then they start making out like their lives don't depend on keeping this a secret. The whole thing feels forbidden and thrilling, like sneaking out after curfew times 1,000. But let's talk about Julia for a sec. She's not just here for some dystopian rom-com action. Julia is clever. She's mastered the art of looking like the perfect party supporter while secretly doing whatever she wants. She's had a ton of affairs before, and she brags about it like a badge of honor. For her, rebellion is personal, about finding joy and freedom in a world that wants to crush both. Winston, meanwhile, is a total softie. He's falling hard, not just for Julia but for the idea that life could actually be worth living. They keep meeting up in secret spots, dodging surveillance like pros. Every rendezvous is a mix of romantic bliss and high-key anxiety. Winston starts to feel alive in a way he hasn't in years. He even stops coughing all the time, which is probably the most romantic thing a dystopian guy can do. They talk about their hatred for the party, their dreams of a better world, and their slim chances of survival. Julia is realistic about it, she knows they're doomed eventually, but Winston is more optimistic, clinging to the hope that love can be a form of rebellion. One of their meetups happens in an old abandoned church bell tower, which is peak forbidden romance aesthetic. Winston is obsessed with the idea of creating a tiny, hidden world where the party can't reach them. It's like he's trying to build a safe zone in a hardcore survival game. Julia, on the other hand, keeps it real. She's like, this isn't about changing the world. It's about finding moments that are ours, even if it's temporary. The dynamic between them is fascinating. Winston's all about the big picture, wanting to understand the party's control and dreaming of revolution. Julia's more focused on the here and now, making the best of the awful hand they've been dealt. It's like they're two players with different strategies for the same impossible game. And somehow, their connection makes it all feel worth it, even with the constant risk of getting caught. Oh, and let's not forget the tension. Every time they meet, there's this electric sense of danger. They're constantly looking over their shoulders, whispering instead of talking, and planning escape routes in case the thought police show up. It's like watching two characters try to romance each other in the middle of a horror movie. You're rooting for them, but you also know things could go south at any moment. By the end of Chapter 3, Winston is head over heels for Julia, and he's starting to see their relationship as a form of rebellion. It's not just about them, it's about reclaiming something the party has tried to destroy: love, freedom, and the right to be human. They're playing a dangerous game, but for the first time, Winston feels like he's not playing it alone. So yeah, Part 2, Chapters 1 to 3 are basically Winston and Julia's love story, but with a dystopian twist. It's equal parts romantic and terrifying, like trying to date in a world where your crush could literally get you erased from existence. The stakes are through the roof, the chemistry is off the charts, and you can't help but root for these two, even though you know Big Brother is always watching. Alright, let's dive into Part 2, Chapters 4 through 7 of 1984. Winston and Julia are living their best secret life, but in a dystopia where Big Brother is basically a 24/7 cam girl for surveillance, you know things are bound to get messy. So grab your victory gin and settle in, because this part gets deep. Winston starts off by leveling up his rebellion game. He rents that sketchy little room above the antique shop from Charrington, aka the world's chillest NPC, who still doesn't seem fazed by Winston's clear desire to commit high-key treason. This room is like their safe zone, no telescreens, no party propaganda, just Winston and Julia vibing. The place is dusty and falling apart, but Winston sees it as a paradise. Honestly, it's like when you finally get your own dorm room after years of sharing bunk beds. Sure, it's trash, but it's your trash. Now, Julia's still Julia, chaotic, clever, and rocking that rules are made to be broken energy. She brings them real coffee, sugar, and jam she smuggled from the black market, which in dystopian terms is basically gourmet. They even have toast, like they're living in some bougie pre-party brunch dream. Winston is low-key in awe, and Julia's like, yeah, I've got a hookup. She's full of surprises, and Winston loves it. He's fully convinced that Julia is the human embodiment of freedom, and he's ready to risk it all. When they're not eating illegal snacks or doing their secret lovers thing, Winston and Julia are getting into some deep convos about the party, rebellion, and life in general. Winston is obsessed with figuring out how the party operates and what makes it tick. He's like, if we could just understand their playbook, we could take them down. Julia? She doesn't care about the big picture. She's more like, the party sucks, but I just want to live my life without their rules. It's a classic idealist versus pragmatist dynamic, but somehow it works. They balance each other out. Speaking of deep convos, Winston has this weird dream memory thing about his childhood. He starts unpacking some heavy trauma, like how he basically bullied his starving mom and baby sister into giving him their food, then dipped out when things got bad. He never saw them again, and he's been carrying that guilt ever since. It's clear that the party's world, where loyalty to family means nothing compared to loyalty to Big Brother, has messed him up. Julia listens, but she's not really about the whole emotional deep dive. Her philosophy is more like, the past is dead, focus on surviving now. Then comes the wildest twist yet, O'Brien enters the chat. If you've forgotten, O'Brien is that high-ranking inner-party dude Winston's been low-key obsessed with because he thinks O'Brien might be on his side. One day, O'Brien straight up approaches Winston at work and makes this cryptic comment about Syme, remember him? The dude who got vaporized for being too smart? O'Brien mentions Syme's name casually, which is a huge no-no because the party's whole thing is pretending unpersons never existed. It's like saying Voldemort's name in the Harry Potter world. Winston is floored. Could O'Brien actually be a rebel? O'Brien takes it up a notch by inviting Winston to his place to discuss Newspeak. It's the sketchiest invitation ever, but Winston is hype. He's like, finally, someone who gets it. This is my moment. Julia isn't so sure about this whole thing, she thinks it smells like a trap, but she agrees to go with him because she's ride or die like that. But before that meeting happens, Winston has another round of existential despair. He's been reading this forbidden book by Emmanuel Goldstein, the party's ultimate enemy and the face of the resistance movement, the Brotherhood. Winston's convinced the book will hold the secrets to dismantling the party, and just thinking about it gives him hope. It's like when you're stuck on a tough level in a game, but you've got a cheat code waiting in the wings. Finally, Winston and Julia go to O'Brien's place. O'Brien's apartment is super bougie, a total flex compared to Winston's sad little flat. O'Brien does this whole secret rebel mentor act, confirming Winston's suspicions. O'Brien is not a loyal party member. Or so it seems. He gives them the lowdown on the Brotherhood and even promises to send them a copy of Goldstein's book. Winston and Julia swear their loyalty in the super intense "are you ready to die for the cause" moment. O'Brien is throwing out trustful energy left and right, but there's this underlying vibe that something is off. It's like when a too-good-to-be-true NPC offers you a quest, and you know betrayal is just one cutscene away. The thing is, Winston is fully committed. He's buying what O'Brien is selling, and he's ready to go full rogue against the party. Julia's less gung-ho about the whole die for the cause thing, she's more about living to fight another day, but she plays along. The meeting ends with O'Brien turning off his telescreen, a move that blows Winston's mind because it's something only inner party elites can do. It's the ultimate flex and proof, in Winston's eyes, that O'Brien is legit. As Winston and Julia leave O'Brien's place, they're both feeling this mix of excitement and dread. It's like they've signed up for a revolution they barely understand, and the stakes couldn't be higher. They're in too deep now, and there's no going back. But for Winston, this feels like destiny, like he's finally part of something bigger than himself. By the end of Chapter 7, the vibe is clear. Winston and Julia have gone all in on their rebellion, and they're betting everything on O'Brien and the Brotherhood. They think they've found allies and a way to fight back, but the looming shadow of Big Brother is always there. You can feel the tension building, like the calm before the storm in a boss fight. Winston's dreaming of a future where the party is overthrown, but deep down, he knows the odds are stacked against them. So yeah, these chapters are a mix of rebellion, romance, and foreshadowing doom. Winston and Julia are risking it all for love and freedom, but in a world this messed up, you know things won't stay sweet for long. Stay tuned, because the party doesn't play, and Big Brother always wins. Or does he? Alright, so buckle up, because Chapter 8 of Part 2 in 1984 is where the vibes go from "we might survive this" to "oh, game over." Winston's been living his rebellion fantasy with Julia, thinking maybe, just maybe, they've found a way to beat the system. Spoiler alert, they haven't. So, Winston finally gets his hands on the book. You know, the holy grail of resistance literature written by Emmanuel Goldstein, aka the party's biggest hater. O'Brien hooks him up with a copy, which feels like the ultimate secret weapon. Winston's hyped, he's expecting this book to unlock all the hacks to take down Big Brother. Julia? She couldn't care less about it. She's more like, cool book, dude, but does it come with snacks? Anyway, they sneak back to their little hideout above the antique shop, and Winston dives into the book like it's the newest season of a binge-worthy show. The book's got some heavy stuff in it. Goldstein basically explains how the party keeps control through a mix of fear, propaganda, and messing with everyone's brains. It's all about maintaining power for power's sake, no real ideology, no noble goals, just straight-up domination. Winston's reading it, nodding like, yup, that checks out. He's feeling pretty smart, like he's cracked the party's cheat code. But let's be real, understanding the mechanics of a rigged game doesn't mean you can win it. As Winston's processing all this, Julia's already checked out. She's napping, because why not? Honestly, it's a mood. She's like, why waste brain cells on theories when we're probably toast anyway? Winston doesn't mind, though. He's all, wow, look at my revolutionary queen, so chill while I'm over here spiraling. He even feels this weird sense of calm for the first time, like he's finally connected the dots on why the world is so messed up. It's almost peaceful, until it's not. Cue the ultimate plot twist. While they're chilling, feeling all smug about their secret rebellion, a voice suddenly booms from nowhere. Turns out, there's been a hidden telescreen in their safe space the whole time. Yep, Big Brother was lurking, just waiting to drop the hammer. The party's goons bust in like it's a SWAT raid, smashing everything and dragging Winston and Julia apart. It's absolute chaos. Winston's screaming, Julia's screaming, it's bad. And guess who's watching it all go down with the calmest villain energy ever? Charrington, the old antique shop guy. Surprise, he's been working for the thought police this entire time. Plot twist level, Shyamalan. By the end of the chapter, Winston's dreams of rebellion are obliterated. All that hope, all those plans? Poof. It's a harsh reminder that in Big Brother's world, there's no such thing as a safe zone. They're caught, the stakes are sky high, and Winston knows he's about to face the party's wrath. It's like the final boss battle is here, but Winston doesn't even have a weapon. Game over, or is it? Alright, buckle up, because Part 2, Chapter 9 of George Orwell's 1984 is a wild ride through Winston's brain as he tries to make sense of this bleak, dystopian nightmare he's living in. Picture it, Winston is in his rebellious era, hanging out with Julia and vibing with his secret anti-Big Brother feels. But then, the party decides to drop a bomb, metaphorically speaking, for now, in the form of Hate Week. It's like Coachella for propaganda, with banners, marches, and enough fake energy to rival a TikTok hype house. Everybody's forced to lose their minds in a frenzy of hatred towards Oceania's current enemy, Eurasia. Except, plot twist, the enemy switches mid-celebration, and Winston's like, what just happened? So, Hate Week is peak chaos. Winston, being a good little drone on the surface, is helping with the party's propaganda machine, but inside he's eye-rolling so hard he might sprain something. The switch from Eurasia to East Asia as the official enemy happens so fast that everyone's scrambling to pretend the switch-up was always the case. Banners hating on Eurasia? Rip M down. Toss M in the trash like yesterday's TikTok trends. New banners are slapped up so quick, it's like they've got speedrunners working PR. The crowd's reaction? They're just chilling, nodding along like, yeah, totally, we've always hated East Asia, duh. And Winston's sitting there thinking, are y'all for real right now? But wait, it gets better. Winston finally gets his hands on a super secret text, the book. No, it's not some fantasy epic like Lord of the Rings or Percy Jackson. It's more like the cheat codes to understanding the party's whole scam, written by Emmanuel Goldstein, the party's #1 enemy. Goldstein's basically the Gandalf of anti-party resistance, except instead of rocking a staff, he's dropping truth bombs. Winston is hyped to finally have answers. Think of him like a gamer unlocking a hidden lore file in a post-apocalyptic RPG. Winston takes the book back to his hideout with Julia. Quick sidebar, their hideout is this dingy upstairs room above an antique shop where they've been sneaking around like protagonists in a stealth game. Julia's vibing there too, but she's not about to read that book. She's more into vibes, snacks, and crashing out than deep dives into revolutionary manifestos. Winston, though? He's totally into it. Dude's all about understanding why the world's so broken. The book lays it all out, starting with how the party stays in power. Spoiler alert, it's all about 3 things: war, ignorance, and fear. The world's split into 3 superpowers, Oceania, Eurasia, and Eastasia, and they're always at war. Except, it's not a real war. It's more like a continuous scam to keep the population distracted and obedient. Imagine playing a never-ending PvP match where no one actually wins, but the developers keep saying, just one more update, to keep you grinding. The party's goal isn't to win, it's to keep people too busy surviving to question what's really going on. Goldstein explains that the party's all about maintaining a rigid class system. At the top, you've got the inner party, living their bougie lives like Twitch streamers who hit partner status. Below them, the outer party, that's Winston's crew, is the overworked, underpaid mods keeping the whole system running. Then there are the proles, the masses who are too distracted by their day-to-day grind and trashy entertainment to cause any trouble. Proles are basically NPCs in the party's eyes, useful but not important. Goldstein goes on to explain that war isn't even about territory anymore. It's about destroying resources to keep people in a constant state of scarcity. If everyone's broke and tired, no one's out here forming resistance groups. Plus, war justifies the party's oppressive rule. You want freedom? Nah, fam, we're at war. Better let Big Brother handle it. It's like they've weaponized the FOMO of peace. Winston's absolutely shook reading this. He's finally getting the 411 on why everything sucks. The party isn't just about controlling your actions. They're about controlling your thoughts, your memories, even your reality. They've rewritten history so many times that no one can tell what's real anymore. It's like trying to figure out the original plot of Attack on Titan after all the plot twists. Goldstein calls this concept doublethink, the ability to hold 2 completely contradictory beliefs at the same time and accept them both. For example, we've always been at war with Eastasia and we've always been at peace with Eastasia could both be true, depending on what Big Brother says. It's mental gymnastics at Olympic level. But here's the kicker, Winston's not just reading this for funsies. He's looking for hope, for some sign that resistance isn't futile. Goldstein's like, yeah, the party's strong because they've got all the power and resources, but that's also their weakness. Eventually, they'll mess up and collapse. It's not much, but it's enough to keep Winston's rebellious spark alive. Julia, meanwhile, is snoozing through all this, because honestly, she's just not built for existential crises like Winston is. And then, the chapter ends on this low-key ominous vibe. Winston's feeling all enlightened and rebellious, but you can't help but think, yo, my guy, you're playing with fire. The party's not the type to let people run around with forbidden knowledge. It's like when you're carrying a super rare item in a game and every enemy starts targeting you. You just know something bad's about to go down. To sum it up, Chapter 9 is Winston's deep dive into the party's scammy game plan, courtesy of Goldstein's manifesto. It's all about how power is maintained through manipulation, fear, and endless war. Winston's hyped to finally have some answers, but the whole thing's got this creeping sense of dread, like a countdown to a boss fight he's not ready for. So yeah, things are about to get real messy, real fast.